I was crossing a controlled intersection near my house. I listened for the one car that went on my near side parallel traffic, so I knew that it was my turn to go. So I then decided to step out onto the street, and as I approached the center of the intersection, a left turner from behind me to the right decided to go for it. Before I knew it, car hits me on the right, and I was actually thrown about 20 feet.
Pedestrians, particularly those like Fernando, who are blind, low vision, or deafblind, are at risk for being hit by vehicles moving through intersections and in and out of driveways. These accidents are not just scary, they can have tragic consequences.
I did sustain severe injuries on my left side. I actually suffered from vertigo after. I had a severely bruised couple of ribs, and I was in a lot of pain. I fully recovered, but it was pretty traumatic. That was the scariest instance in my pedestrian career.
In 2014, San Francisco became the second city in the nation to adopt VisionZero and the goal of zero traffic deaths. The VisionZero approach has now been implemented in more than 50 communities in the United States. According to VisionZero San Francisco's 2022 end-of-the-year pedestrian fatalities report, failure by driver or cyclist to stop at a red light or yield right-of-way at crosswalks were in the top 3 cited factors in collisions. These were also a primary or secondary factor in 10% of pedestrian fatalities that year. 58% of blind and low vision people surveyed recently by LightHouse for the Blind and Visually Impaired San Francisco said they had either been in a pedestrian accident or a near miss, and 74% report that they do not feel safe as a pedestrian in the city.
I am starting to cross the street with the parallel traffic on my left. I hear the audible signal, the light says I'm ready to go, the parallel traffic starts up. I step off with my guide dog. I had a good trajectory to head straight across that street and make it safely to the other side. And this car pulls right into the crosswalk, blocking my way. If I go around the car towards the front, I don't know if I'm gonna end up too close to that parallel traffic. If I go towards the back of the car, the driver might suddenly catch the sight of movement and panic and back up, which is also very dangerous. It's really important for me to have that safe, clear, clean path of travel for my dog to confidently step off the curb and get me safely from point A to point B.
Scenarios like this are very common in San Francisco. Cars are coming from all different directions. People try to beat the yellow light. When I am about to cross and there is traffic coming from all 4 directions, the intersection could be to my right, for example, and a car comes speeding down through the left. It's always dangerous for pedestrians like us. One thing I would like sighted drivers to know is that we can't make eye contact with them to know that they see us as we're about to cross the street.
One of the challenging scenarios that I can face as a blind pedestrian is there's a street to my left, and as the parallel traffic has the green light and is moving along and I'm getting ready to cross the street, there can be a car that comes around the corner from my left and goes right in front of me. Very often when drivers are making that right turn, the last thing they look at is maybe turning to the right, where I might be once I was crossing a right turn lane. And just at the moment when I was about to step into the street, a car came around the corner full speed into the sun. And the only reason I'm still here is because there just happened to be a police officer on that same corner who caught me before I stepped into the path of that car. Even if you're in a hurry when you're making that turn, or really when you're at any intersection, slow down a bit. Make sure you take those extra seconds just to check to make sure your path is clear and that there's not somebody stepping into the intersection.
If I'm in a busy area where, especially if it's a driveway, I make sure to stop and listen, kind of like I would at a street corner. I have to be a lot more cautious, use my cane a lot more rigorously. So the advice that I would give to a driver who is getting ready to come out of a driveway is cars nowadays have backup cameras and sensors and stuff like that. And a lot of drivers tend to heavily rely on those. The cameras and sensors only detect a very specific area, and you could very easily miss someone. So use those old techniques of turning around and looking to make sure no one's there before you exit a driveway. And also make sure you're going slow and you're looking at different times to make sure it's safe to go.
One of the tools San Francisco uses to help people who are blind or low vision cross streets safely are accessible pedestrian signals, also known as APS.
There's a chirp, or sometimes it sounds like a bird's sound or beeping, and it's intended to indicate when the light turns green for blind or low vision travelers to cross the street. And some of them have a vibrating feature as well, which is also deaf-blind accessible, but they're also not the end-all be-all because only 40% of intersections in San Francisco have an APS signal. Then there's also the fact that they can sometimes be broken. I would recommend an APS at an intersection that is a busier street. The other thing that would lead me to recommend one would be if the angles are awkward, and especially if there's an intersection of more than 2 streets. If you encounter an intersection that either does not have an APS one that you believe should or has a malfunctioning APS, call 311 in order to report the broken APS or to request one be installed.
For San Francisco to achieve its goal of 0 traffic fatalities, drivers have a particular responsibility to pay attention and to ensure everyone is safe while walking and rolling around the city.
Along with the specific scenarios that you're seeing in this video, I hope that you learn a little lesson about each situation when you're driving and you might encounter a blind pedestrian.
I mean, you shouldn't run anybody over, but especially if you see a white cane user or a dog guide user, just give us a second to get across your lane.
The city of San Francisco has taken a lot of steps towards making it safer for pedestrians to cross the street, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
The most important thing is to remember that we are part of your community and that we do travel about. Take a little time to be that much more aware so that we have the same freedom and safety of movement outside of the car as pedestrians that you have when you're inside your car traveling.